I'm not going to do any features on this project until I have at least a minimum pipeline. But what is that? Like, when should that intuition be developed, and by whom on the team?
I have a thought on this, and for me, it's also like one of the first things I do when I start a new project is to have this pipeline in place and to have some basic linting, basic checks, have a test framework in there that makes it easy to write some tests. And then I can also, then it is the barrier to writing tests is lower. And often I think that's, and also with the pipeline, the barrier to extending a pipeline is lower than the barrier to creating a pipeline. At least this is my impression from working with teams, that often people don't know what it means to build a pipeline, and they think because they don't know it's something very complicated and that takes a lot of time. And then when they are asked, okay, how long will it take? They say, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks. And then somebody says, okay, then let's not do it now. We don't have time. We don't have 2 weeks for that now.
And I use AI in Notion. So when I have my cursor at a specific point, I select some text and I ask, okay, this is going to be a topic for an article. Give me like 10 suggestions for a LinkedIn hook. I generate ideas generally with it, but it hallucinates a lot.
I have that actually quite sometimes when you ask, for example, ChatGPT, let's say a specific framework for a mapping tool or something like that. You ask, how can I do that? And it starts to write you. It starts to write you down the code. You think, oh, great, I copy that. And you
this looks amazing.
Those
and then you paste it in,
exist.
and then it uses library commands that don't exist. Yeah,
exactly. And this is actually one of those cons. I really hate that.
Yeah,
and I don't trust ChatGPT at all when it comes to
the right
that
code
kind
like
of
that. No,
application.
absolutely.
And there we are.
Hello, hello.
Welcome, everyone.
Hello, and we have a special guest today, which is
Daniel Moka is with us today. Hello, Daniel.
Hey, everyone. What's up, guys? How are you doing?
Today we're talking about extreme programming. Daniel, I've seen you mention extreme programming a few times. You're also co-hosting Tech Excellence. And extreme programming comes up every now and then, but usually it's the disciplines. What is extreme programming to you? If we jump right in, what's the canonical definition? Yeah, what is the canonical definition? Like, where do you go? If I Google it, I the first hit is some weird website. So I'm always
Yeah, for canonical.
Are we not talking about Windows XP today, or what?
Welcome, live viewers. Today we are having an episode about Windows XP and why it's so much better than Windows 7.
Love that.
No, go ahead.
I gotta clip that for YouTube for an April 1st episode. Wait, what day is April 1st? Okay, now you got me hooked. April 1st is a Monday. Okay, tough luck. Hey, Saddam, John, Jean, Grant, Stephen, hello. Jose, hello. Thank you.
Just wanted to say, I just saw on LinkedIn that when Daniel was joining the stage, there were a lot of hearts going on, popping up. So there are really fans of you here today. So really appreciate to have you all here today and joining us together and see what Daniel has to say, because very interesting topic, right? So maybe we.
I only see like 4 people in chat. What do you mean? There's a lot of people here. I can't see you. Let us know where you're from. Let us know where you're standing from. Kalion, hello. Yeah. So back to our sort of quick intro. I want to get the basics through to the audience in like 10-15 minutes. What's the canonical definition? How do you explain extreme programming to somebody?
Yeah, for canonical definition, we should go to Wikipedia and check it out. But I would say the core of extreme programming, extreme programming consists of a group of or collection of practices. Separate, they are sort of overlapping or interfere with each other, but separate practices. And once you follow, a group of them, or you don't need to follow all of them, then I would say that you are doing extreme programming. On the other hand, we have to keep in mind, maybe many of you, or maybe the audience didn't hear anything about extreme programming and why it is extreme. I think the word extreme is not the best name for this. At first, it might sound extreme for the people, but once you really get hooked to it, then I would say it becomes common sense. It becomes not extreme. For example, just to start with a short example, let's imagine two teams. One does XP, another doesn't do, and I will describe both of them with a few simple action or activities. So let's say we have a team, an extreme programming team. So they are extreme because they work on only one branch, on a master. They work only one computer because they work together. They test their code early for safety, right? And they don't have any PR branches. They don't use PRs at all. And they say this is extreme. So let's see another team which I met a lot in my life. And I think many teams, and I think also all of you and many of you met similar teams. So the other team which doesn't use XP, they have 10 branches. They have 20 open PRs. They use code coverage and mutation testing, but I don't think they use mutation testing. But surely code coverage, they struggle with code coverage to add test for their code, and all of them work in isolation. So again, which is more extreme? The first one, when everything really sounds smooth, or the second one? So somehow for me, the naming...
Let's ask our audience. Okay, so which one do you find the most extreme? So the team that works on trunk, works together on a single machine and doesn't have PR, sort of integrates daily, or the team that has long-lived feature branches, struggles to integrate, struggles to test cover things, and everybody sort of 7 people work on 7 different problems at the same time without talking to each other. Which was more extreme?
Exactly. But someone had a good comment that it's about extreme productivity and extreme quality. And exactly, that's indeed, so that's a great point. That's the result of it. So for me, extreme programming, and also through my career, I was a big fan and always a big practitioner of extreme programming. And doesn't mean that I practice all of them. So let's say I practice most of them. But if you practice most of them, so the thing is that the extreme programming practices solves most of the problems the engineers have who don't follow extreme programming. And so therefore, for me, extreme programming is a common sense.
Wait, you can't use extreme programming in the definition of extreme programming. We can't have recursion.
And here is the harsh truth. Let's start with the harsh truth. And I think most of you will relate with this. I never met with a team or a person or anyone who used the practice of extreme programming, such as TDD, pair programming, small releases, or whatever. They used for a longer time, and after that they got back to the other way of working. Never. I never met with anyone.
Yeah.
And even when I am with teams, I am working with the tech excellence group, and and other. I have a lot of colleagues and ones who are extreme programming specialists, and they are also practicing it. I mean, it's just no-brainer. Once you got
it is so natural. It is natural. It is how I started 20 years or 24 years ago. It is actually like that. And somehow we got into this big isolation, Git flow nonsense stuff. I don't know why, actually.
I can tell you why. There are multiple. I have multiple theories.
Daniel has all the answers. Let's go.
I would say generally, and maybe it will sound again a bit harsh. Sorry for that, but generally, people can't wait. So we have this concept, low time preference, right? Everyone knows.
They lose appetite. They wait. They lose interest. It's like in a restaurant. Like in a restaurant.
One point.
I hear you. I got you with the restaurant analogy.
Exactly. But so we have this low time preference. Low time preference, generally in the life, means that you value the time in the future more than the present. It means that you invest in stocks, or okay, it's not a financial advice, but you invest in the stocks in order in the future to get some better return, or you go running because I don't know, in 10, 20 years you will have less health issues, so you have low time preference. And I would say people have low time preference only for cookies. They don't have low time preference for extreme programming practices, because extreme programming practices such as TDD, pair programming, they require other skills, and it takes time and effort to really get good at them. You know, it's what is a long time, it's relative, but it takes time. So therefore, they don't invest the time learning. But let's say there is some new hype, the framework or a library or whatever, they jump on it because they get immediate dopamine from that. Yeah, it's a cool stuff. Let's use it. But most of the time, it never pays off. But the practice of TDD versus practice of extreme programming pays off. And so therefore, people just, they have high time preference. You know, they value the today more than tomorrow. And that's why they don't care about the quality of today. They don't test today because they don't care about what will happen in 2 months or 3 months. So I would say this is one of the reasons.
So I imagine a world, now going back a little, like imagine we're going back 20 years.
Okay.
It's 2004, which is about whereabouts I started working in tech.
Yeah.
It was a few years before my first sort of professional job.
Cool.
In 2004, let's say we roll a coin. We throw a coin, 50-50. Heads, you go into Gitflow and you plan your tech journey like you would a construction site, right? So everything is architected up ahead, planned. There's a working schedule, everything up until the last like detailing on a little window seam. You're in that kind of group. Tails, you're doing extreme programming. It's not popular. Nobody knows about it. You're pair programming. Everybody looks like you as if you're crazy. You're doing TDD. And that's just how you get used to working. Now, I got lucky. I threw Tails at the very beginning of my career. And then I tried the other method, and I always thought this is crazy.
And then he went away.
He went away. Shall we continue then? Yeah, I guess,
Yes.
yeah.
Let's. Wait, he's back.
Ah, cool.
No.
I went back and I hit back on my mouse button. Like that's, I mean,
It's
Welcome back.
okay. So
There's
I
an
lost
issue with the
chat.
PWA we use, I
So
think.
I lost chat. So Adrian, I need your help. Okay. So I tried the other method, but it seemed crazy to me, and I went back. The other group had exactly the same experience. They tried extreme programming. They said, I'm not used to this, and went back. So it seemed whatever you start off with really heavily impacts how your software engineering career goes. So I'm thinking, maybe extreme programming, we're trying to pitch it to like these old sort of traditional engineers who aren't doing it and trying to convince them to try it, rather than just targeting immediately bootcamp developers, junior developers, starting coders, junior engineers, interns. Just try it. Just integrate continuously. Don't be afraid of your team. Work together. Just socio-technical at the beginning and get it over with. So that's my question to you. Were you in this camp where you transitioned, or were you lucky to just start with XP at very early on in your career?
Yeah, actually, once I, start in a professional environment, something like 10 years ago, my colleagues, one of my colleagues, or actually two, but one of them surely were Uncle Bob fan. And, Uncle Bob is TDD and all these things. And he tried to help me with, TDD. And I started writing with tests, and I did some, tried to write TDD at that time. But, it didn't take off because, I was lacking, other important knowledge as well, how to test and other things, clean code.
Sure.
So therefore, I didn't start with TDD as well. But luckily, I had a good environment, and I'm super grateful for those people because I could learn from you the mindset. We didn't do pair programming. We didn't do mob programming. Also, releases were okay. But, it was not strict. It was not strict. I would say it was, not all the XP practices were applied, but a few of them, yes, and the mindset, yes, and the quality and the testing. And I think testing is one of the best, basically the best way to really to have a safeguard and have a safety net, and to have a confidence about. Basically, is the best way to have a confidence about the code you produce. And they were really passionate about testing as well, and we were really passionate. And I learned a lot of testing at that time, and after that I kept learning. So luckily, yes, I had it, but TDD not. And also, between teams, sometimes, I started with pair programming. We did pair programming on default. After that, I joined another team where it was not on default, and I had issues with it. I tried to push it. It was successful, not successful, etc. Other jobs. So many times I somehow jumped back a bit, not with TDD, not with testing, not with clean code, not with simple design, but for example, pair programming and with a few practices. And every time when I jumped back a bit, I felt, oh my God, it's just wrong what we are doing. And I started really, pushing and spreading the words about, hey, we are having a lot of problems and we can solve all the problems if we use this, that, and that. And basically these are sort of designed or made for these problems. So yeah, I would say I started as an XP, sort of, clean code and, well-tested solution practitionist. And I kept it as we did, absolutely. And I love doing it. Writing test is my favorite activity.
So
I would like to, so I showed several comments right now, and I'm very happy that everyone is tossing so many comments. This is great, actually. People continue to do that, but we have something we should talk about as well, especially when we have Daniel here. So I just show it once again. So XP
Steven.
is about Steven.
Go ahead.
So Steven says XP is about social change. It's about letting go habits and patterns that were adaptive in the past, but now get in the way of us doing our best work. It's about giving up defenses that product us but interfere with our productivity. It may leave us feeling exposed. This is basically extreme programming explained. So is that a definition you would follow as well, Daniel?
Yes, I agree with that. It's also from the Ken Beck book, right? So exactly, it's a social change because so extreme programming practices are about collaboration. Most of them are about collaboration, collaborating with the customer, collaborating with your developers, with your colleagues. So absolutely, you need to. It's a social change which is difficult. I mean, it's easier to teach someone how to name a function or how to name their, software elements, or how to use hexagonal architecture, than telling someone, hey, you have to adopt the people you are working with because he's slower, or she's faster, etc., etc. So it's a social, it's a social activity. Software engineering or extreme programming really pushes these ideas that software engineering should be a social activity, pair programming, mode programming, and having the customer on site. So it's a continuous collaboration. And in order to collaborate, we need soft skills. And teaching soft skills is very, it's I would say, so again, the soft and hard skill, again, the naming is not the best. I would say the hard skills are soft because you can easily teach it. It's just a 1 week training.
It's mostly about interpersonal relationships. Like it's not so much about soft skills. You're not going there to sell something. It's not about. It's about having, actively listening and being able to connect with the human, not so much with the process.
Yeah.
Exactly, and also to, if others has an issue or you feel that others have some empathy for the other person. And as you said, active listening and also giving your time, be patient, and all these things. So these, all these things, basically the traits or virtues of human beings, and you need to have these. And if you don't have these, it's therefore a lot of people don't want to really change because it's easier to let's choose this new architecture form. It's easier to do that than let's change my behavior. Changing other people's behavior, it's not easy, and you don't want to manipulate them. So therefore, it is another challenge of extreme programming is that it requires a lot of collaboration, and that's what instead of communicate, you should collaborate. Because what what teams are doing is they try to communicate it via, I don't know, pull request. They start to with the Slack messages, Discord, everything. They communicate with a lot of meetings. And instead of that, they should just sit in the same room at the same computer,
just work on the problem together,
and just collaborate and talk to each other.
Solve the problem together rather than talking about planning the problem solution. Right. So it's such a silly. And usually teams don't even talk about planning the solution together, but they're in a planning meeting to analyze the problem. And it's just going the wrong direction. They're just, it's like they're like trying to corner the problem without anybody actually jumping in and trying to solve it. So
we have a question here. I just want to have that question in between, just because to have some, so to manage expectations of the audiences who are not that familiar, like Steven, for example, is with XP. Is extreme programming about extreme salaries?
Yeah, I think it's not about the practice you do; it's about the company and what is the revenue of the company, right? In my opinion. So if with extreme programming you can reach extreme results, and extreme results can have a good impact and money-wise for the company or someone you work for, or if you sell the knowledge of extreme programming. But I would say it's related to the company, right? So you don't. The thing is, nowadays, we have this digital. Everything is digitalized. Software engineers are in big demand. So everyone wants software engineers. We have high salaries. So even without extreme programming, you can get high salaries. So you don't need it. But extreme programming is about software craftsmanship. It's about producing quality solution and care about the customers.
It's an orthogonal practice, right? So your salary depends on the success of the business, the industry of the business, and the business strategy of the business, right? So the pricing strategy, the value proposition of the business. Now, what extreme programming does, it doesn't directly impact the first three, which primarily dictate salary ranges, but it increases the chances of you being successful in executing on that strategy. Now, if your strategy sucks, then if you're doing extreme programming or no, and your chance of success is 0, it won't make it worse or make it better. But given a good setup, a good playing field, it will produce more good than bad. I think that's the best way of, at the cost of some discipline, at the cost of some, getting out there and being social with your coworkers, which I think is a good thing. But a lot of people don't like that, especially a lot of people in tech, a lot of software engineers. They like talking to the compiler rather than, the human person sitting next door. So that's really the issue. So I ran a poll. Just hold on, because we got to structure the conversation a little bit. So I ran a poll last week, and I asked, when did sort of extreme programming become normal? Because as we saw, extreme programming isn't really that extreme. But when did the practices become normal? And the overwhelming majority said extreme programming to them became normal when pair programming stopped being stigmatized, when pair programming became acceptable, where managers wouldn't ride your back and saying, hey, 2 people sitting at the same computer, hey, go back to work. That I remember that very clearly. I was an extreme programmer, so I didn't know who Uncle Bob was. I don't know. Uncle Bob, I started in the PHP world, PHP JavaScript world. Uncle Bob, I didn't really know who that was because he was very Java heavy early on in the early 2000s. But I did do pair programming and TDD. So I knew Kent Beck, but to me back then, as a junior developer, extreme programming looked like Scrum. And I was like, I don't know. And if you look at the disciplines and if you look at the activities and the principles, most people don't know them. That's the second poll. Most people know extreme programming for 2 things, mobbing/pairing and TDD. And I think Kent Beck really revolutionized sort of that momentum of iterative planning, getting the tactical side, just work in small batches, work in small steps, test every single small step. He even had like this book, Extreme Planning, Extreme Programming. It's one of the older ones that are talking about the iterative process and separating planning the solution iteratively and planning releases iteratively. Helps you sort of think about continuous integration a little bit more without getting into Jira hell. But to go back to the sort of the origin point, extreme programming became normal when people stopped shaming you for pair programming. I think that's a great distinction. And a lot of you might not know this, but we're reading 2 Kent Beck books right now in the book club. And I was lucky enough to invite Kent on a call last week.
Awesome.
2 weeks ago. So we had a little 1-hour discussion with Kent about his new book, Tidy First. And we also touched on extreme programming. And, and for him, the reason he went into all this effort into creating all these activities is his mission is to make developers happier. Like, happy developers create great products. I think that was his mantra. Mm-hmm. And TDD is a way of managing the developer's anxiety about releasing, or anxiety about having to test something that they deploy, anxiety about not being sure whether something works or not, anxiety whether they don't know how to isolate a piece of functionality and describe it in the user's words, right? Because they might not be the end user of the thing they're building. So extreme programming to me doesn't seem that extreme when it's about managing the emotional state mm-hmm. of the team that's working on the product. And I think that's something we don't talk enough about, like the emotional state, the sort of well-being of the team.
Exactly.
Like you manage that, because you said you could notice, this is crazy. If we don't do XP, there's something weird in the room. Mm-hmm. Like, what we're doing is wrong. This is not okay. Like, we should be doing X and Y and Z. Could you explain more, like, what that transition point for you is? Because you do that, I think, actively. I think all of us do that actively whenever we join a new team, and we sort of we're very sensitive to there being processes that really annoy people or slow people down, or they prevent people from collaborating. What's your stance on that? Like, how do you
stance on the transition again? So what was it?
So how do you identify this? Like, you mentioned there's something off in the room when you go into a traditional working team, a team that works traditionally, not with these XP principles. Like, but what is it? What is it that you feel?
So I got it. Got your question. Thanks for clarifying. So I think there are a few problems which happens always or most of the time if you don't follow TDD. For example, not TDD, actually, the action program practices, but I would say TDD is a core thing here to solve these problems. But pair programming, I would say pair programming, and it was really good that they said pair programming and TDD indeed the 2 main practices which can solve most of your problems. So again, what are these problems? I would say one problem. So the thing is, we can't add quality after the fact, or it's very difficult to add quality after the fact, and we try to do that. And for example, first of all, we have this whole PR process, right? And this whole PR process, it blocks the teams. You have merge conflicts. The review processes are bad because I don't know. I mean, it's when it's when it's 10,000 lines, they just said, okay, it looks good to me. So it's rare to see, it's rare to see reviews where really the deep down of the core logic is where reviewed. They just, change this variable name, here, that, even not missing tests. I mean, most of the developers. So this is one problem, for example, that they use these PRs, which introduces, the work in progress, and work in progress introduces a lot of context switches tiring down the developers, burning them out, and it really increases the lead time. And so how can we solve this? We use pair programming, right? Because we review the stuff real time. We don't use PRs. Or even if we use it, we don't make them in the way that it blocks the team. You can make a PR, you can review it, and if it really helps you to review code in a better way, because PR also has its power. It's not a black and white thing, right? I mean, PR is sometimes good when it's really a way another person looks at it in another context, in another, another environment, namely in a browser, in the GitLab or GitHub or whatever. But all in all, the most important is that pair programming, for example, solves it. Another problem is the testing. That if you don't do TDD or if you don't test early, then after that you need to suffer a lot with testing. And here again, let's use 2 examples and let's talk about it. So how does a non-TDD practitioner test their code? Unit test their code. And how does a TDD practitioner test their code? Let's talk about first the non-TDD practitioner. So the non-TDD practitioner writes a lot of code. After that, starts writing tests for it, realizes there's a lot of problems, so again, going back and fixing the issues because it's not working. Okay, testing again. Okay, Is it done? Not done, because he or she or they need to use code coverage to find out, okay, which is the part of the code they didn't cover. So they use this code coverage, which is not, I wouldn't say complex, but sort of meaningless. We can talk about it later. So
has a high signal to noise. It has a low signal to noise ratio.
Exactly. But surely they can find things which are not executed by tests. So they use it. And after that, they fix it. But after that, they are still not done. They need to use mutation testing, but most of them don't use. But they need to use mutation testing to find out, the missing
branch coverage,
behaviors, right?
Missing branch coverage, yeah.
Exactly, because the code coverage, tells you that which part of your code is executed. Mutation testing tells you which part of the code is asserted by your test, and that's what you want. So again,
and you're also with mutation testing also helps you test if the code fails. Is the failure message of the test meaningful, which is also an important property about TDD.
Exactly.
It's like when it fails, it should fail for the right reason, and the failure message in the test should tell you. This is one of the things that developers ignore the most because they don't refactor their test, and the messages aren't clear. It just read, and it's like, I expected null to be not known, and that's not a usable test.
So going back to examples, let's start again. They write some code, they test it, they fix the code because they figure out it's not good. Okay, test it again. Use code coverage. Okay, they fix their test. They use mutation testing. They fix their test again. Okay, run again the things, and it's continuous hassle with all these tools to reach 100% code coverage and 100% mutation score. So no, and this is the person who doesn't use TDD. So let's see the person who uses TDD. They write code with TDD. It results code which is working. It results code with 100% code coverage. It results code with 100% mutation scores. Of course, still they run code coverage and mutation testing just as a quality check, but not as a quality assurance. But that's it. Writes code with TDD, does a quality check with this tool, and that's it. Goes on. But there's quality checks. Usually there is only one or two missing test cases or none, because we are human beings. We make mistakes, so it's possible that we make a mistake in a TDD flow. But again, so you should have the non-practitioner hackers a lot. And
how do they feel? How do they feel? Like, what was the big difference in emotion? How does the non-practitioner feel?
It's a frustration. It's a frustration and a continuous hassle to really fix my code, and it's demotivating. It's demotivating to see my code not working, demotivating to continuously add a lot of new stuff and music. Even mutation testing, I wouldn't say it's perfect tool because it's a very technical. You have this, okay, here if we replace this, this arithmetic operator, then it fails.
And it's also not mainstream. It's also not very mainstream. I don't really. Mainstream. I think I see smoke testing even more than I do mutation testing. But they are sort of symptoms of a problem.
Exactly. So this way of working, I don't understand how people can write code with this without TDD. I mean, oh my God. And as I already mentioned.
I can, because I work with them every day. The problem is they think this is normal. Exactly. They're in a box. They hate their job, and they think this is normal. They don't see any other.
So what I see often is, we talked about with Richard several sessions ago about burnout. Richard Donovan, right? And developer burnout is often related to the environment you work in. And if you have an environment where everything is stacking up because you lost confidence, you lost control over what you do, and there's more and more pressure coming in. The business is more and more requiring things from you, but you cannot actually deliver because you already are in that crappy state, in the stagnation. This is losing. Basically, you're losing
for the backlog,
exactly. And you lose control, which is basically the root cause for burnout. So actually, it's a very bad situation to be in, and I never saw when a company utilized several of those things, not even all, just several of those, it is already like having that, developers are happy. And if you have happy developers, it is unlikely that you have burnout. So it is basically the opposite, right? Exactly. Just wanted to add that. And we really need to go over the questions.
We have a lot of questions. Yeah, we have a lot of questions, Daniel. So roll up your sleeves and
stacking up.
And happy developers create happy customers. So, as a last sentence.
So, I would say, because we always have the promise to make it audience driven. So, I would say we're just going through the comments now. I'm let's go, you know.
Let's go.
go.
Looking forward.
Stephen, who just left, see you, Stephen, hope to see you later, just said multiple branches, long-lived branches is extreme to me. Too much risk. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It's too much. I mean, every branch is a different version of the application. We have to maintain them in a different way. It's a lot of context, and it just leads to expensive mistakes and rework. And that's what pair programming, for example, solves it, or more programming, the continuous review that you prevent rework.
Also, if you follow the latest advice of refactoring, especially if you're a big 𝗪𝗏𝗃 fan and you're separating out your refactoring commits from your behavior change commits, or if you're just doing TDD normally and you commit between TDD steps, all right? So the way I coach TDD, we commit between steps. We use semantic commits TDD, so we commit the feature phase and we commit the refactor phase, so they're in separate commits. Refactors always have to be expedited to master as soon as possible. They have to be the fastest integrating commit type in your system. Long-lived feature branches prevent that. Because you would, right? So when you do a refactor commit, it needs to follow your hotfix procedure. But I mean, ideally, everything should be following your hotfix procedure, because ideally you should be doing trunk-based development. But even if you're in a long-lived branch environment, the biggest issue is that if you do not expedite the refactoring commits past your bureaucracy, your PR merge conflict octopus mess bureaucracy, then the developers will feel terrible refactoring. So they will feel pressure when they're refactoring because they're afraid that the thing they refactored broke something on God knows which feature branch. And that's only the feature branches that are active. I've seen messes in code bases when there's like 7 active feature branches and 30 of them that got abandoned, you know, because the customers or the management lost appetite and they said, hey, we've been waiting for too long, we need to course correct and we'll get back to it. And there's like a feature branch that everybody dreads opening because now it has conflict merges and there was a refactoring in there and we did a refactor and now it's a mess. And that's the worst, that's the most demotivating thing you can do.
Yeah.
LinkedIn user, which is our most active regular.
Hello, Thomas.
Is mob programming a part of XP? And do you practice mob in real projects?
Absolutely. Did it, done. Also lately, not actively, I mean, not every day, because it's not easy, I would say. I mean, not easy to, for example, lately I'm working with a lot of freelancers and working on the same projects with a different time, USA, you know, Hong Kong. So it's not this, you know, it's difficult to sync up with the time, but absolutely. And yeah, that was all, you know, so what's the question? How do you practice mob in real project? Yeah, you need to sit on the, you know, I think mob programming is, it's very simple. You just need to sit on the same computer at the same place at the same time. You know, you can do it remotely as well. You don't need to be physically together. And yeah, either camera or without camera, you don't need camera. And of course you have to rotate after that. You have to do the same like with pair programming, right? But you rotate earlier even, but surely 10, 15 minutes. And yeah, and you know, the continuous, you know, people who are behind you, you know, watching your code, reviewing code and driving you, and you know, you are writing the code. So absolutely. So mob works, and every time when we used, it was the best. This was the best. So mob programming is pair programming on steroid. Why? Because even pair programming can have its issues or has its issues. Pair programming, mob programming solves it. Yeah. For example, one is that still in pair programming you have isolated groups, isolated pairs. In mob programming you don't have isolations. So that's one problem. One problem which mob programming solves. The second is pair programming tend to be exhaustive. It's tiring, especially the one who, you know, who is really new to it. Like you really have to rotate. You really have to keep, you know, watching the monitor and, you know, reviewing the code. It's tiring. It's exhaustive.
It's a meeting. It taps into your social energy battery.
Adapt to your team member. He is slower. She's faster, etc. So you need to really continuously adapt yourself.
Oh my God, don't get me started on keyboard typing speed. Like there is nothing worse than slow typers on an ensemble.
Exactly. So what I mean, mob programming fixes this. success is because there is not 2 people, 5 people together watching. And if you are tired, just go. We don't care. We can go on without you. Of course, let's have a break together. Let's have a lunch break together. Let's socialize, have fun. But if you feel tired, go outside, take a walk. We can keep continuing. The work never stops, or of course, only for food breaks or coffee breaks. So that also solves. And another thing what I love, and that really makes more programming, is the silver bullet of collaboration, namely that if you work alone on a feature, then you get the best work one person can do. If you work 2 people on the feature, then you get the best work the 2 people can do. If the whole team work together on the feature, you get the best work the whole team can do. And the whole team will be always better because more heads better. 2 heads are better than 1, 5 heads are better than 2. So this. And every time when I use more programming, it was always a big success because we shared the knowledge, we had fun, we socialized, we wrote code, we reviewed it, we didn't need PRs. It was always a big success without any issues. As I said, the only issue is nowadays, which can be a challenge, is that once you have team members who are working from different world, we have a lot of remote teams, then it's difficult to sync up. I cannot really work with people from the USA unless I work at evening, which is I don't prefer. So therefore it's pair and more programming can have issues as well. But this is what I wanted to add here.
We need to clip that. We need to clip.
I have to clip so much of that, so it will take me a day, I think. Okay,
let's go.
Never mind. Sabrina, a regular as well, asks, what would you say? XP is like Scrum plus TDD plus pair programming, I think. Also, it can be a little weird to it as a new member in remote team and pair programming. I mean, if they are not used to.
TDD and pair programming together, it really makes a powerful combo, and it's a core part of extreme programming. I wouldn't say it's fully extreme programming because you have the collective ownership and merciless refactoring, but also TDD is a part of continuous refactoring, the small releases. But still somehow there are overlapping. But Scrum, it's a bit off here.
Yeah,
I use
Scrum will definitely slow you down if you do TDD.
The problem with Scrum, I mean, waiting for feedback until the
end of the delivery cycle.
Exactly. Yeah. It's too long. You need it earlier. You need to, and if you have a work, and preferably you should have works which can be done in 1-2 days.
Now, Scrum can work. Scrum can work. And this is my recommendation because I do end up coaching teams who are doing Scrum, not by choice. It's just they needed something, so they chose Scrum. And I tell them, look, if you want to follow Scrum, let's follow Scrum. I have no problem with that. I do not want to invest energy into making Scrum go away right now because we have bigger problems.
Absolutely.
What I do recommend is that let's make the sprint sizes 2 days. Let's have 2-day sprints.
I love that.
Not 2 weeks. Let's have 2-day sprints. So there's 2 important properties here. It should ideally match with the latest amount of time that you're willing to wait to get review on one code review or one pull request, and B, it should not naturally sync up with recurring events on the calendar. So it should not sync up with a Monday to Monday, or it should not sync up month to month. It should be an awkward size, so you cannot make it a sort of recurring management style. So 1.4, 1.5 days,
exactly,
3 days, 2-day sprints, but definitely not 5. A 5-day sprint will just create like this weekly cadence again, and everything slows back down to a crawl.
Very good. I love the idea of 2-day sprint, but you shouldn't spend the 2 days on all the meetings Scrum has. So
no. Like
that's absolutely. I mean,
you would have one meeting to plan a major ensemble and release, and on the meeting immediately transition into assembling. So rather than having a 4-hour sprint planning, you would plan it for 20 minutes, and then on the 3.5 hours, you would actually ensemble together. Everybody opens up their laptops, their IDEs. Somebody shares. You have a comment about Tanner Ilyasov, a new face, code with me. So that's the IntelliJ integrated coding tool where you can integrate with all the other IntelliJ IDEs. And IntelliJ is not sponsoring this stream, by the way.
Okay.
But they could.
They could.
Yeah. Next time.
They could.
Capitalize on it.
We have all licenses.
I have copies of the same license because I keep mixing the personal ones with the group licenses that I have.
I think we have way more licenses that we actually use. Actually.
Yeah. You know, Americans have 1.2 car per person. I think I have like 1.2 licenses per.
Do you
per
have the
person.
ultimate license?
No, I never buy the ultimate license. You know, the sunk cost fallacy always kicks in with me. I mix open source licenses with personal licenses because I don't always use all of them for work, and it is a bit extremely aggressively priced for.
So when we you all know Jira and the burn down charts. You are actually at a horizontal burn down chart at the moment with comments. So we maybe should work on those.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And we had a comment about code with me.
What's the comment velocity right now?
This comment velocity is bad at the moment. So what about TDD and AI code generator? Is this possible today on a continuous dev? So probably it's a little bit about in general, maybe. Is AI a possible partner, first of all, for pair programming and for test-driven development, helping you finding, you know, those requirements you want to test? What do you think about that, Daniel?
Yeah, AI is a cool tool. It's useful. It can act as a good assistant. You can get a lot of inspiration from it. But that's it. So the biggest problem with AI tool, the trust. You can't trust what it
hallucinates too much. It has too high confidence when it hallucinates.
And it's enough for me. If I cannot trust the code, what it produces, then I continuously need to review it, what it gave it to me always. So I always fear what it sent to me. You know what it, you know what, and so therefore. But I use it for, you know, getting inspiration, like let's say some deep cryptographic or some, you know, some really deep down stuff, peer-to-peer messaging or whatever. You know, I use it to get some inspiration, give me some, you know, ideas. How could I solve something? But after that, I take on and I do it.
It's great for boilerplate.
Exactly. Copilot, I don't use it, and also I'm in a stack. I'm in a complexity of the domain. It just cannot give me good answer. I mean, I just don't use it. I mean, just putting semicolon at the end of my line, really, and it's without joke. Really, that's what. Okay, let's put it, or let's put the bracket. That's what I use most of the time, because it cannot give me good stuff, and I don't let it giving me any code. In the front end, on the other hand, I have to tell, I think AI trained better on the front end, or there are more front end things on the you know GitHub.
The interface is also different, right? Because you can tell it, give me a button that has a sidebar where one button at the top has a red button with a rounded border, and you use plain English to describe what you want.
Yep.
And it translates.
But this is not a good idea.
It's not a good idea to create scalable solutions, but it's great to just have a prototype boilerplate off and running.
What I do often with Copilot and JetBrains AI and ChatGPT, actually I have 3 at the same time, I really describe what I want in comments, and I let it basically be done by the AI, and then I work over it and say it's good or not. So actually I'm able to, you know, determine if it's good or not. And I have to say, because it learns with you together.
Yeah,
it's basically both front end, back end, YAML files, even readmes, write me readme documentations, those kind of things. As long as you can determine if it's good or not.
I have to admit, I love using ChatGPT for YAML and JSON config files.
Good ones.
That have terrible documentation. So the Webpack config, for example, I have to Google it anyway, right? I just can't for the life of me remember the Webpack documentation or the, you know, prettier RC, what the documentation is. I have to Google it anyway, or open the docs anyway, right? So if I have something where it is declaratively required of me to open the documentation, look it up, copy it over, and then set it to true or false, or God forbid it has another nested object in there, for that I would by default always use AI. But that's for configuration. That's for me translating what I want, and I'm not really sure which option it is. So that's what I would recommend AI for.
Just relating to back to the question, so let's answer also, because some
for AI, there were some experiments with you writing the tests and then telling the AI, hey, implement this for me. I have not found very scalable solutions.
Oh, exactly. On the other hand, just going back I used it, tried it. It was okay, but I don't rely on it. It can come up with test cases for if you really forget something. So that can give me test cases for this behavior, and it can hallucinate a lot, but it can give a quite good answer. But I don't really rely on it. So just going back to the answer with TDD AI code, no, not really. I would say I do it without. But as I said, front end, it gives me better results. Over there, I need to. So as I said, in backend, a really complex domain, it really doesn't give me good results. Even sometimes I disable it. On front end, it's quite okay. And I talk with my friends, and they said the same. Yes, on front end, it speeds you up much more than on a backend or complex domain. Of course, backend, if you write a crude applications, come on, of course it can give it to you quickly. But we are when you have a complex domain, then it won't help that much inspiration.
Actually, what is better for that is JetBrains. So if you use JetBrains, JetBrains AI, because it has as the context your IDE in its entirety. So it knows about your project. So you can even ask about where do you see problems in my code base, not on this page.
GPT does that as well, but only for Copilot X on VS Code. Right, so that's the Visual Studio. Right? That's Microsoft. ChatGPT is primarily in the Microsoft domain, so the Microsoft tools obviously have a better support to it. And 𝗪𝗵𝗲-𝗱𝗿𝗃, fellow Hungarian, also has a GPT-4 suggestion that he says GPT-4 doesn't hallucinate for me at all. Sometimes it gives deprecated code, but that's not hallucination. It is a great pair programmer. Are you guys using that or stuck with the free GPT 3.5? The difference is huge between them. So I tried both. I'm usually using 3.5 because I just find the latency is just slightly better. Because I'm very latency sensitive when I type. It depends. On the context where I use GPT-4 and GPT 3.5, I find that GPT-4 has better explanations, but it doesn't deal with the false confidence that it does with the hallucinations. The problem is, even if it hallucinates even once, it is not reliable to me. Like the hallucinations have to be zero, right? So not as often or much less often is still not good enough because it still keeps me on the defensive. Like I have to be able to trust it.
We have talked about that already. And on this page, you will find an entire episode about AI, Copilot, and all this kind of stuff, and how we used it. Will it replace you? No, it won't. But take a look at it. It might be interesting for you.
You spoiled the main point of the article.
Oh, damn it.
Okay, next question. Let's go. Doing great.
No questions, but sometimes just interesting statements as well. Steven said, "This is great, guys. I'm glad you are all spreading the greatness of extreme programming. Unfortunately, I have to drop and stand. Already said goodbye beforehand." And then we have Nicholas. One aspect that I notice in traditional environments is that they tend to inspire a lot of ego protection behaviors. Hold the work close to your chest, paper over the corners. You have cut attribute gaps or shortcomings to others. The discipline of extreme programming is like constantly shining a light on ugly parts, accepting them with vulnerability and dealing with them collaboratively. What would you say about that?
Yeah, how I understand this is, for example, like shining a light of ugly parts. Let's say when you collaborate with someone, then you realize, oh my God, I'm not good at collaboration and I have to fix that. Or you are frustrated and yelling about, hey, pair programming doesn't work in my context. Or, oh my God, I am a not good collaborator. I have to drop my ego and I have to learn how to work with this person. And once I learn how to work with this person, the next person will be different. So I also need to adjust again. So it's a continuous. It shows my vulnerabilities, my mistakes, or the weak points, and I need to fix it. Or in the code as well. You continue in TDD, for example, you continuously reflect on your code, right, in a refactoring phase, and you continuously take care of its quality. And always, it's like in every minute, right? In every minute, you do a TDD cycle. TDD cycle takes 1-2 minutes, right? Maximum, I would say, max. And you need to refactor in that cycle always. So you need to look at the ugly parts of the code. So if this LinkedIn user refer to this, then this is what I would add.
I have to mention, so Adrian and I coach a lot. Adrian coaches a lot of strategy. I coach a lot of sort of life coaching and sort of this emotional aspect of it, because this always stuck with me. So TDD and extreme programming really connected well with me for my sort of life coaching background, with in combination with my sort of craftsmanship understanding as a technologist. And I had a session about this actually with one of my mentees recently. And 2 points. One of them is that productive teams, especially in tech, coincide with those that have very good psychological safety in the environment. And a lot of engineers who say, I don't like pair programming, it's just a symptom of being in an environment where psychological safety is low, right? Because you might communicate, we have an ego problem, or there's a lot of screaming or punishment going on when something goes wrong, or somebody wastes time coding or whatever. They might not be open to making mistakes visibly in front of their manager, in front of the other coworkers, etc. Right? So if you find like you're physically recoiling from pair programming, you might be in an environment that lacks psychological safety. That has nothing to do with pair programming. That is a more cohesive problem to do with your relationship with your manager, with whomever you have informally empowered to have power over you, and you're sort of treating that with isolationist tendencies. Long list feature branches. I work alone. I have focus time. The most extreme thing I saw is one company, an agency that I worked at, introduced silenciums, where from 8 a.m. till 12 a.m. nobody was about to make loud noises. So no speaking, no right. So it was the focus time in a shared office space, and that was completely dysfunctional. Like low psychological safety, low collaboration, and very much low appreciation, low gratitude, low praise, and high criticism, high sort of stick mentality, and very chaotic outcomes, right? The engineers don't understand the outcomes of their work. They just have to work, more, work on this, not on that. This is wrong. Work on that instead. We're late. Why are we late? Don't be late. It's not even what can we improve? It's just be good, be better, right? Do better.
Exactly.
And that's not a very good environment to sort of work in. But usually developers attribute that feeling to pair programming rather than the actual work environment. I noticed this a lot, so I've invested a lot of effort into articulating it when I'm coaching teams on this, just to highlight sort of overarching problem structure.
Exactly.
Have you found anything other than psychological safety that can negatively impact pair programming adoption or ensemble/mob programming adoption?
As I said, when the people working in different time zone, that's pretty challenging. That's surely, and you cannot really fix it, or you just change the time when you work. But when we are a family, it's difficult to change that. Yeah. So I would say these are the two things, and if these are fine. And for the first one, not for the time, but for the psychological safety, you need to hire good people. So, and that's I think today I was talking about this on LinkedIn. That when I sort of interview people, I'm not so interested in the technical skills or the frame. Of course, I'm interested that whether he likes or not, whether he or she likes TDD or not. That's a good question always, because that's my jam. But apart from that, I'm interested in people, whether they are good people, whether they have empathy, whether they treat people, whether they have curiosity to learn, whatever it takes to solve the customer problems. And if it is given, we can teach everything else. We can teach TDD, we can teach hexagonal architecture, we can teach how to write clean code. These are the easy part, right? This is just one or 2 weeks training. But again, changing someone to behavior and dropping your ego, which the person had in the last 40 years or 50 years, you won't change that. You won't people after 50 years, or it's very difficult, and you won't change it because, especially when you are younger than the given person.
We had a very good question on the cost. I'm not sure. I think I lost it. Do you still have it?
About mob programming?
Yeah, the cost, the business outcome. I think I lost it on my screen, but you might still have it.
Wait a second. This one.
This one, yes. Is that by Thomas?
No, it's LinkedIn user again.
LinkedIn user. Okay. Let me find it. Yeah, it is Thomas. Let's talk about the business and the cost side of mall programming. How can we measure this in cost and quality? I have a very controversial answer here. Cost is the same, quality is better. It's a no-brainer. So people tend to talk about this cost thing a lot, right? So if you pay each developer $8K per month and you have 5 of them, it's $40K per month. That won't change, right? So the cost, it's a fixed cost. Whatever they do, your monthly payments do not go down or up, right? So your process doesn't directly correlate to.
I think the concern is more coming out of the agency-driven companies, where you actually think in hourly rates.
But that's the same.
Yeah, but
even when you have hourly rates, you need to understand what you're comparing it to, right? Because my question would be, when you're doing, if you're a really good software engineer as a freelancer in an agency, you should be the most expensive one. Now, probably not expensive because of extreme programming. There's probably a lot of other competencies that go into it. But the real question is, are you being paid for your success or for the success of your team? If you're solely being paid for your own success, then extreme programming doesn't really have a way to come into fruition because it requires tight collaboration. But if it requires tight collaboration with temporary actors, then that might also prevent tight collaboration. So extreme programming might already be set up sort of, up in an uphill battle in such an environment. So really with an agency, I would always ask, is the agency incentivizing a race to the bottom of the cost ladder rather than increasing the price by virtue of having good quality, right? So are you becoming a sort of a franchised supermarket with fast food, and you're sort of trying to drive down the cost of an engineer by scale? Or are you trying to exponentially increase the per developer output per cost for each new engineer that you hire? These are exponential systems. This is how Google works. This is how AWS works. For every engineer they hire, the output of every other engineer surrounding them increases. Right? So the more engineers they hire, the more productive they become as their main metric is how many people can we hire in a year.
But I would contextualize this. So in all fairness, I don't think that you can have one answer for all contexts and companies out there. This is simply not possible. So there are some contexts, and those contexts need to be fixed. But if you have a direct correlation, and you have that quite often when you have this offshoring stuff where you have hourly contracts or something like that, this is pretty hard because there is no incentive for the agency to do anything regarding quality. It is just an hourly thing, and this is a broken concept. And I would say more programming, pair programming. This is for an internal team, for a company product which shall scale and shall be better over time. Then it's definitely the way to go, in my opinion.
And it's absolutely cheaper, right? I mean, you will be faster. We will do more work in the same amount of time. So it becomes cheaper, right? I mean, you reach much more, the goals. So therefore, because you prevent a lot of expensive mistakes, the rework, and basically that's the biggest one of the most expensive things is that you need to rework your software, because you do the PR you have a lot of things, and after that you need to rework the software or something you misunderstood, or a junior developer. It's a lot of rework. So therefore, pair programming fixes this, and that's a lot of time, a lot of money.
We have 2 Thomases in chat. I'm confused.
So we have so many LinkedIn users.
So Thomas, sorry, it was Thomas, but not that Thomas. So sorry, Thomas. I confused you with Thomas. Anyway, that's my dad joke budget for today spent. Another comment I wanna mention is that in software engineering, especially on a fixed team, the biggest cost does not come from wasting time pair programming. The cost comes from working on the wrong thing for too long, right? So what you should be focused, right? So why are agencies have a bad rap? Because agencies are not incentivized to keep the product. The product is the team. It's not, 𝗂𝗱𝗶𝗲 mentioned this today on one of his LinkedIn posts. Imagine you have two situations. One where you have a really good team that has a track record of building amazing products. Imagine the original inventors of Facebook. You delete their code base and you just left with the team. Or the other way around. You keep the code base, it's really good, but you lose the team. Which one would you rather have? The team without the code base, or just the code base without the team that knows how it works? Right, like that's the point. Mostly founders or non-engineering people would want the code base, and that's silly because everybody who's in engineering understands that it's all about the team. Right, so extreme programming is about putting the team first. So it is really important that you're caring about the process, about the engineering culture of the team, and that you have to protect that and keep it together. If you're in an agency that disbands teams all the time and you hire somebody else all the time, extreme programming is not for you because you do not have a team, right? So you need to have a team. That's really important. Otherwise, you're just gonna disband the value. You're gonna invest into it and then you'll throw it away. Of course, that's gonna cost you for no benefit. I was coaching. So one of my mentees today, they had a really good point, right? So they had exactly this point. Hey, I have long-lived feature branches, and I help my juniors grow by commenting on their long-lived feature branches. And we highlighted the problem with this. It's like, oh, I can't do trunk-based development because then how do I code review? And the point was that code reviewing on a pull request is too late because you're just reviewing the output. You should help the developer review their process of how they were thinking, how they were acting, how they were stress alt tabbing between Facebook and their IDE. That's what you want to review. You want to help them get better at their process, about their thinking, about when they get stuck, when they write the test, when they get stuck writing the test, when they get stuck designing. That's the really important aspect. Because it's the reviewing the process that's really pair programming and ensemble programming. You're really just improving the process as you go. You don't need any handoffs. With code reviews, the process was already there, then it got deleted, and you only get the output. Now you don't know what the process was of how this was created, and that's the important part to review. And it's very hard to sort of reverse engineer that. And reverse engineering that is actually very wasteful.
And exactly. And also the PRs, another problem with them. No, I remember that they are superficial in some sense, because in order to make good reviews, you really need to understand everything about the given feature, everything.
And the human.
All the specifications, everything you need to understand deeply, which sometimes takes a lot of time in order to review it properly. And most of the times it doesn't happen. And that's, again, that's where we get a lot of PRs with looks good to me at GTM. And that's it, because they don't get it, or even they get it, it's superficial. So therefore it won't be reviewed deeply. And as you said, people will build the wrong thing.
And we compare this today with an example about learning how to drive. Right, so pair programming is learning to drive when the instructor is sitting with you, pairing with you, pair driving with you. Like, that's the idea. Imagine how you would learn to drive if you were in the car alone. And there would be somebody outside of the car just taking random screenshots of you, and then you crash the car, or God forbid, you get to the destination 3 hours later, and then they say, oh, I saw some screenshots and I don't think that was okay here in this intersection. Imagine the waste that goes into that process rather than them sitting next to you, and God forbid, even protecting you if you might make a really big mistake. Right? So the really big impact is about sitting next to the person and helping them as they drive. But pair programming has this problem of it's really important not to have a dominant part of the pair, right? So which is the problem that ensemble programming solves, where it's important that seniors can learn from other seniors. It's very important not to stratify your ensemble or your pair in a way that one person will always be dominant.
Absolutely. If someone is dominant, it can suppress the other person, and it's not pair programming anymore. So, but the person who suppresses the other one should feel it. Oh my God, I'm dominating the talk. But for that, you need the self-awareness again. So some social part of the game.
Okay, I would quickly have a question for the audience. So we have it actually, which is here anybody in the audience on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, or LinkedIn who is a fan of Daniel and wants to join us during that session for 10 to 15 minutes, a hot join we call that, and just join the discussions and ask questions live. If you're interested to, just pass some comments or pass it into the comments, and then we will send you an invite link. Awesome. Good. Then we have, let's say, some statements or questions. So, Tana says, Venkat...
There's a reply. Let me get the original. Yeah, let me get the... That was a reply.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, let me open the thread in LinkedIn because it will make more sense. So just give me a moment to find it, and I think we'll quickly get an answer from the audience as well on your offer. So,
cool.
So it's not a reply. So Venkat Subramanian says, good quality code is about empathy. If you care about other people, you will take care that the code you write is easily understandable and maintainable. I think that's a good stance. I don't think that has anything to do with extreme programming, but it does highlight the overall mantra.
And many people lack empathy, so therefore we have a lot of bad projects, unfortunately, or low quality. Yeah, that's the reality. One of the reality. But the other one, I think maybe we can touch if we don't have any questions, or do we have?
We have. Actually, Anjana has a great. Anjana is one of our regulars, and she says, "I disagree with the point that ceremonies bring down productivity. Ceremonies warrants members to show up on mutually agreed times for remote in different time zones." I think that's a good point. What I would recommend is if you're in different. So Anjana works in a very sort of multi-time zone remote environment. We did speak on this a few times in our previous streams. And one of the best recommendations that I can give you is rather than having stand-ups where you have ceremonies to have meetings, have ceremonies around pairing. So rather than having your stand-up in the calendar, have a fixed pairing session in the calendar. It's how I coach primarily, especially remote teams. Even when you don't know what it's going to be about, you will always be working on something on Tuesday at 11 a.m. And just block out 2 hours of focus time for an ensemble to meet. And then whatever is top of mind for the team at that point, you just do it together. That is the best recommendation I can give you if you want to get into extreme programming very easily.
I love that.
Daniel, anything you would like to add here?
Yeah, about the ceremonies. Yeah, I mean, totally agree with that. That for remote, for people in different time zones, that's the only way you need to do a remote, unless you work at midnight, right? So that's a good point. Or even maybe, I mean, there are some people who are still, but a lot of people are still doing Scrum, and they don't like when we mention that, hey, the ceremonies are a waste of time and brings down the productivity. Yeah, you can be successful with, I wouldn't say, you can be successful with Scrum, but it has some good points. For example, the retrospective is really good. I really loved always the retrospectives, but I think also the retrospective should happen not at the end of the 2 weeks or end of the 3 weeks. It should happen if something is really wrong. Tell me right now.
A retrospective is too late because then
exactly
if you wait 2 weeks. Because the best retrospective happens if you have 2 weeks. The best retrospective is 2 days in.
Exactly.
Because then you still have 12 days to act.
Exactly.
So my best recommendation is always when I get agencies that do like these weird 3 month engagements. Like it's like we can estimate your project, but it's usually going to be X amount in 3 months, right?
Yeah,
it's typical agency bullshit. And what I usually tell them is do not spend their entire budget before you do a retro. Do a retro at like 10% milestones or 5% milestones. Or God forbid, do release planning, extreme programming style, every 2 days, every 3 days, every day, and then have a short retro on what we just deployed, in the theme of Brian Finster. Why is it that we can't deploy something today, give it to the customer, and check if it's useful? If that's not the normal, why is it not the normal? What prevents us from doing that? that's a great retro.
Yeah.
Right? So if somebody says, "Oh, I have a backlog of 20 features. It's gonna take us 30 days to develop, and then on the 31st day we will wait for feedback." That's a silly process.
And another reason for that is that people have a project mindset, project mindset thinking, and instead of that, we should have a product mindset.
Product mindset.
Product mind. They should have product mindset, not project. But project, okay, it takes half year. It's a 𝗪𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗧ish thinking. You should have a product mindset, and you should really narrow down the scope. You should work on the small things that makes the user's lives better, that is useful for the user. You work on it 1-2 days, and after that, you have it reviewed by them, and you get the feedback, and you learn together, and you discover new things what you never thought of, and you keep doing this short cycle-based way of working. Basically, that's the core of Agile, right? Core of that. Agile. A lot of people made Agile so complex with safe and all these things. Agile is so simple. You have to talk to your customers, work in short cycles, and practice continuous improvement. And that's it. These are everything else is distraction. Everything else is noise. These are the three things: talking to your customer, working short cycles, and continuously improve the product. And
you should only plan long-term stuff for platform and infrastructure concerns. Like the long-term planning should be involved with, we will have to upgrade React, by June. Right?
Sure.
Like that warrants planning.
Yeah, to actually keep the qualities like maintainability and all this kind of stuff, you need to have this. Those are long term always, but short term requirements aren't.
SOC 2 or PCI, if you have any compliance, you have to use latest, either stable software, LTS software, or still not end of life software essentially. So every now and then you have to review and say, we have end of life software, we need to upgrade this and this and this. Like that you plan. Because that's keeping the lights on, that's maintenance, that's security, that's platform hardening, right?
Absolutely.
That should be planned long term. Your features should not be planned long term because you should be planning your features sooner, not bigger, right?
Exactly.
So sooner, not bigger.
and the thing is, and another thing is that you don't know what features you need to build, and your users neither. They don't know what features they really want. And that's a wrong question to start. Like, okay, it's a wrong question to ask your customers what features they want. It's a wrong question. You should ask, what do they want to achieve?
This is the same question when you ask before Christmas your children what they want to have for Christmas.
Oh my God.
So it's a never-ending story. There's always something new.
Customers and business and non-engineering business people, they cannot create requirements. They can only edit them, right? So they have to see the product, and then they will immediately tell you what's wrong with it.
Exactly.
But they cannot create the requirement set without seeing the product first, right? So a lot of people think, 90% of what you build is going to be wasted. And then people mistakenly think that Agile is about only building the 10%. That's la la land. The problem is you need to build 10% or 1% of each feature and then ask a really important question: was this it? To then decide what to invest money in next.
Exactly.
That's what iterative means, right? Because I spoke with Kent Beck on one of his founding hours. So those of you who are founding members of Kent's Tidy First Substack, I think once a month he meets with other solopreneurs, and he mentioned this idea that you have to go through the entire distribution, right? So 80% of our features being useless is on the distribution. The 80-20 bit, you have to do the whole 100% of the spectrum. You can't just get the profitable bit, right? When you're doing stock trading, a lot of your successes will be, a very low minority of your trades. But you need to do the full volume of trades. If you only do the 10%, then only 1% of that 10% will be profitable, right? So it's better that you spend your whole volume, but understand that this is a chaotic process, and you need to constantly be asking yourself, okay, does this make sense? Does this look like the loss will be bigger than the gain? Yes? Okay, stop. And then do something else. Right? Like that's the point. You should have stop losses on your bets. On what features you put into your backlog. That means that for every feature that goes into the backlog, you should really understand, okay, how do we prove in one day that this feature is worth investing into? How do we prove in one day that feature B is worth investing into? And that should be the iterative process. Because otherwise, you don't explore the entire spectrum, or God forbid, you explore the entire spectrum by building everything 100%, and then you spend your entire budget.
Yeah.
But then once you know, and it's possible, and I've seen this a lot, that at that point, it's possible that you actually received a really important feedback of which feature is the most important, but you're so bogged down with maintaining now this entire system that you don't have time anymore and you don't have budget anymore to actually act on the feedback you're receiving. Because now you're being crushed by the weight of having to maintain this large system.
We have a question. Sorry. Sure, go ahead. We have a question from 𝗂𝗱𝗶𝗲𝗃𝗲, and he's asking, I want to begin a startup after 2 years of experience. What are the first things I should put in place? And I think this is a question which is pretty common of what should I, implement into my engineering practices, into the development life cycle first. So when I want to just say this now, when I join teams to help them, what I see often is this question people ask themselves after 2 or 3 years of doing, not in the beginning. So first of all, this is a good thing to ask yourself this beforehand, before you actually start to do things. So Daniel, what would you say are the first things you should do if you don't have anything right now?
You should find a good team. You should make a good team, find good people to work with. Good people. You need smart people with incredible energy and loyalty. And once you have these, then you can start working on your product. You need these. So without these, bad or wrong team members, it won't work. You will have issues. If you have a bad CTO or whatever, it just won't work. So I would say focus on finding a good team or making a good team. So that's the best advice I would give here as a first.
Yeah.
Good
Don't
team.
gatekeep knowledge. If you're the CTO, become pleasant to work with.
Absolutely.
And then enable that and ask people to be of the same standard.
Exactly. Take care for the culture, actually.
Yeah.
Because it is when joining teams, it is always about fixing the culture first. Even if the team is calling you because they think they have a technical problem, in reality, it's always the cultural problem that people don't want to become better or don't really want to change things. And this is the real reason why they don't do things. And this is where you can really score by implementing this from day one, right?
Exactly.
Hello. Anyway, the offer is still up for a hot join. Daniel does have a hard stop just before 6 CET. So if
it's your chance.
Now is your chance to join the stream. We'll just give you a link. You can keep your camera off if you want, but it would be delightful to sort of have somebody.
And Jana said already she liked to join, but she can't. She's at work at the moment.
She's at work. I see. Oh, I didn't understand the context of that answer. Okay. What else do we have? I mean, we're going to the backlog really well. On the context of MVPs for fresh startups, I would say absolutely do not chase MVPs. You do not want to be chasing the engineering team should not be chasing viability, right? So what you minimum viable product or minimum valuable product. The point of MVP is a business concern, and it has to do with business strategy. MVP means we have found the minimum viable product for our business strategy. MVP does not mean the minimal amount of code being invested. MVP is a business concern, not an engineering one. In engineering, what you should be doing when your business is building an MVP is you should be asking the question of what will make this product successful? And you should then go to your customers and talk to them. Are we measuring the right things? Are we able to express success for this code in numbers, in business terms? What kind of surveys do we need to put together to be able to iterate on the product? That's the questions you want answered. Because the worst thing you can do when you're building an MVP is to not be able to answer with every deploy, every day, was this worth it? right? Because you're on a tight budget, you're on a tight deadline. You want to be able to talk directly to a customer, which means, please, and this is now free advice, and I beg you, if you're building a for-profit product, do not offer it for free to get feedback. Because you want to test the product strategy of this being a paid product. I've seen so many products sort of that are kind of mediocre, and they want to target a for-profit audience. That's the business strategy. The business is not viable if you don't sell it. And then they give it to people for free. And then they ask them, and no, it's good if you then ask them immediately, hey, would you pay for this? How much would you pay for this? And if they say no, you scrap development immediately. But if you have this sort of free trial and freemium, and then you're trying to hook them in, that's a huge concern for building MVPs. Like, somebody in the business is afraid of making their business viable. You have to address that. There's nothing in engineering you can do if there's that kind of gatekeeping going on with making your product successful. It requires holistic product engineering thinking to really build a successful MVP.
On the other hand, yeah, that's a good point. But also, let's say when you start up and you are creating your first product, it's very good practice to have not making it free for everyone, but making it free for a set of users.
For early adopters, enthusiasts. Yeah.
Exactly, like beta testers.
Yeah,
and working with them daily and get their feedback. And if you really want, you don't want to announce it, so you want to hit the market. And another thing is that for a startup or all these things, like before launching the product, that if you really need to hit the market, that you never neglect quality. I see teams, they neglect quality because they say, oh, we need to hit the market. But instead of neglecting quality, you should reduce the number of features. So
quality in the context of extreme programming means that it was built on time, that it hits the requirement needs of the user on time. That's what quality is. Quality is not how pretty the code is. Quality is not how good the linter says you're doing. Quality is not your lighthouse score in Chrome.
Exactly.
Quality means that it was built to the requirements of the user and nothing more, on time or sooner.
Good.
That's what quality is.
Exactly. And once the junk is in, it's very difficult to get rid of it. So really keep up the quality and start building in quality from day one. And you can do it by using TDD, pair programming, and other extreme programming practices.
If you're building anything greenfield, TDD definitely, I would say, requirement. Just give it a try.
Tana, can you please send me a message on LinkedIn? Just a private message, because I can't find you at the moment in the great LinkedIn UI.
Okay, we're getting a hot join. Okay.
Yes, we're getting a hot join.
So while you're dealing with that, let's see if we mixed some questions. Anjana mentions, sometimes I use stand-up as a short-time retro. I can't cancel stand-up. It is annoying, probably. I will stir the pot. Yeah, so I see that a lot with teams as well. What you should be really focusing on is the stand-ups should be about the question of, are we all working together on the same problem? If not, should we? And yesterday we worked on X. It didn't go as planned. Should we continue working on it? Those are the best questions for the stand-up. The stand-up should not be reporting to somebody who doesn't understand what you're working on. That is not a team. Right? So if you go to the stand-up and there's 6 people there and 5 people don't know what you're working on, that is a waste of time. Because you're not a team. Because that's 6 people working on 6 different problems, and there is no value in you being in the loop with them.
And exactly, and if you do, and yeah, another good question can be, what are the blockers, or what are the impediments, right? What really blocks us, or what will block us today, or what we should be really pay attention to, not to be blocked. But again, you need stand-up because you don't collaborate enough with your team members. So again, you use something to fix the mess, but you could have used pair or more programming. And
if your team is pairing every day, you wouldn't need stand-ups.
Exactly, or mobbing. Exactly, definitely. So therefore, it fixes it. And again, problems, and people try to solve it with PRs and branches and pull requests, whatever.
Stand-ups are a band-aid for teams that isolate themselves to do work rather than collaborating.
Exactly. Yeah.
And collaboration means that two people work on the same problem at the same time, right?
Exactly.
Collaboration is not, I will commit it and then I will throw it over the wall to you, and then I'll do something else while you do something else, and then I'll reassign a ticket to you. That's not collaboration. That's handoffs. That's waterfall.
Yeah, that's a way of poor communication, I would say.
Yes. It's a handoff culture. It's very slow. We have Tanner joining us, so
Let's do
He's
it.
right about to join. So everyone cheering then, yeah, in LinkedIn, pressing the celebration button.
yeah, let's celebrate Tanner's
Yeah.
courage to join us live. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, man.
Hey, Tanner.
Audio good?
Audio is good.
Okay.
Good to have you.
Welcome.
What's up?
Yeah, it's good. It's a really nice conversation. I'm happy that I saw this live event going on. I think you
Awesome.
touched upon really nice subjects that I care about right now. So yeah,
It's your chance now to toss some questions and say something about that.
Or an insight.
okay.
Or-
I want to bring up a discussion that's really on my mind right now, and that is I work a lot with more junior heavy teams, and I've been a mentor for a long time. I constantly switch with other people who are up and coming, let's say. So what I'm trying to do now on a greenfield is to set up the project in such a way that it will be more autonomous in the end. So things that I'm implementing now is architecture decision records, for example, because now I can make some choices. But in the future, if I'm not in the project, for example, that should be apparent why we did something. And I'm thinking about other ways to do this, like how to improve the code quality and enforce it a bit, like with evolutionary programming. And what do you guys think about that? So fitness functions, for example.
I
Are
would
they a good
say,
idea?
so the really important thing you want to nail early is that you won't get this process right at the first time.
Yeah,
So
of
while
course.
you're trying to figure out what the right process is for a greenfield team, you should also encourage them to join this discussion and make their process better while you're trying to figure out what the best process is. So the best thing you can do is to involve them in this situation and tell them, hey, whatever process you come up with, we'll standardize it for other teams that have similar contexts. So please document everything that works and everything that doesn't work. That would be my recommendation. Right? So don't do it in isolation and then give it to them. Give it to them as an experiment and then extract and standardize what works and iterate on the things that don't. Or rather, iterate on the things that are good and applicable to other teams and stop experimenting on things that aren't working in this context. Now, the tricky part is you need to trust your team enough to actually empower them to make this decision. That's the tricky part, right? So it has to be them first, and you only come in and speak last if they can't make a decision, or if the decision they made was bad, but they're too attached to it to remove it, right? So you should be removing processes. They should be adding processes, and you should be removing them, but only if they're not capable of removing it themselves. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, if they are juniors, then they should really lack a lot of knowledge, right? And you are probably the senior architect, right? So you should share it with them. And pair more programming might be not the most efficient way to share them. Maybe they need some training, 1-2 weeks training, and it might slow down you 1-2 weeks. But if you never do that training with them, it will slow you down forever. So trainings can really help you to really, what are the stuff? Because let's say you don't want to introduce pair programming at the first, but you want to improve the PR processes, right? Because also, I mean, PRs, we talked about that PRs has a lot of problems, but if it's done well, you can go get along with it. It can be powerful. Of course, pair programming is way more powerful, but it still can be powerful. So how to do proper PR, how to review the code, when to review, how to review, so have a culture about it. So these kind of things, I guess you are familiar with this. I would give them a training on that. And if you don't have the knowledge, then you should get a trainer, and it will pay off. As I said, if you slow you down, the first week, 1-2 weeks.
I would even say I would even say get the training or the coaching for yourself, Tanner, and then you go into the room and just be a knowledge radiator. Just you show everything. Like, be the kind of business owner that shows them by example how to do. Imagine Gordon Ramsay in MasterChef. He shows everything: how to fillet a fish, how to cook something, right? So be the master craftsman that can do every job and demonstrate how the job is done, how you expect it to be done, such that it is of high quality. And then see what sticks, see what doesn't stick, see what they have issues sort of repeating or modeling, and then leave the room. And then do that regularly. But do the coaching for yourself because you're more advanced, and then go into the room and have, see what sticks. But if they don't want to learn and you don't set a high standard, they might get stuck. If a junior pairs with a junior, they might be stuck at a local minimum, right? So it would be a shame not for them to be able to learn from you. But of course, if you want to separate yourself from that team will have a really tough time sort of getting up to speed to your level, right? So you wanna go there with the mentality that you have something to learn from them, they have something to learn from you. You can demonstrate everything, especially the things that they are curious about, and leave it up to them. I would say ask them, what do you want to learn? What do you struggle with the most? How does work suck for you? Because if they look up to you informally, if they empower you to be a role model at their work, you're their boss, which means that their job satisfaction is primarily dictated with how good their relationship is with you. And that's what you want to really, really focus on from day one. Never mind the process, never mind the tests, never mind the product. Their relationship with you is what will determine their level of quality of their output.
Nick Someko says, hello, Nick. 10 a role model every single day. Do your job in public in front of your team. That's a good
absolutely
advice.
Absolutely. Nick and I see eye to eye on this. We should have Nick on the episode.
Yeah.
Very soon.
Nick, you are next.
Nick, you're next.
I actually totally agree. I'm really against the idea of the architect being in his ivory
tower and
sends decision down and then doesn't even check if the decisions are followed.
I would like to add something as well, which I had just
by the team.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I think the decisions in the end should be made by the team, and it's, for example, an architect's job just to guide them through the correct decisions. So something I do normally is I say, okay, they say, should I do this or this? I say, do whatever you want. If it's bad, then you'll fix it later. Because if they don't make mistakes, they won't learn from their mistakes. If it's something really bad and it's not a good learning experience, I would guide them through to the better decision, in my opinion. But they should try things out.
You highlighted a really key point, like they should fix it, right? So an architect's role in a business is not to make decisions. An architect's role is to create incentives. An architect wants to understand what are the long-term decisions, what are the irreversible long-term decisions, and what are short-term decisions, right? So an architect's sort of role of responsibility is to make sure that long-term decisions that are irreversible, that can cause harm to the business, are very hard to do. So they're creating an incentive where doing the wrong thing is very difficult. That's the point of an architect. The team can still decide to do that decision, but something will be screaming at them. Some linter, some process, there will be another set of eyes on this. Some procedure will prevent them from doing something stupid out of negligence or out of lack of experience. That's the point of an architect. Right? So they don't make decisions. They just help the other teams not to make stupid decisions by creating a very good balance of roadblocks or gatekeeping or enablement, right? So it's positive and negative. It should help them do the right decisions and really annoy them when they want to do the wrong decision, right? So if they want to root access to a production database, an architect should make that very difficult. If they want to create tooling with TDD and sort of do trunk-based development, an architect should enable that, right? So that's what you want to set up, incentives. And then tell them why the incentives are like this, and then ask for feedback. Hey, does this work for you guys? Like, what will work better? Because as you said, if there's something wrong, they have to fix it. That's a very naive approach, I think. because you need to count in this possibility that if it's a long-term decision and it has a huge impact on the business, it's very likely that you will fire them before you give them the chance to fix it. Right? So if the business has to live with their decisions, somebody of equal stature and loyalty to the business should implement procedures on how to prevent somebody who can create harm and then leave the business. Right? So that's the issue with junior developers, is I can install, I don't know, something really silly. We have a React code base and we create something in Angular, and now it's temporary and becomes permanent for 2 years, and then they leave the company. That's a silly thing that can happen, right? Like that's something that you should be probably disincentivizing, or having hard linters on. They can commit any code they want, but they can't install Angular. Like that would be a good linter, for example, for a junior team, right? So I don't want the Angular package to accidentally make it into the code base if you see evidence that they could do something silly like that. Just to give you an example.
That's the whole idea of fitness functions. So now, for example, we set up architecture tests. Now we decided to use clean architecture in this application. So we have tests that will not let them go outside of the boundaries and make, for example, things in the domain depend on the infrastructure.
That's great.
Yeah, if it's small kind of decisions, that's when I would let them to hit the wall. But of course, if it's something costly to change later, as architecture is really commonly defined, then I would stop it at there.
Yeah, and as you also said that, don't forget to work with them. So develop software with them. A good software architect is a software developer. So we have to, you will feel the pain of them if you work with them closely with the code, deep down in the code, writing function, writing test, and you feel that pain really deeply. You will feel yourself. And okay, wow, this is a big problem. Let's fix it. So that's a good point. And that's why we didn't really talk about it, but in my current team, I'm a core developer. And especially at the beginning, it helped me a lot to come up with improvement points, because I work from day to day. I work with them, I write code, and I really feel their pain. So, But as you mentioned that you want to prevent the ivory tower effect, which is a really good point.
And this is also why I wanted Daniel on the show, because he actively sort of knowledge radiates extreme programming and TDD, but isn't a coach, right? So he just says, I'm an engineer, I do this, and I join the team, and then I just share my knowledge, which is exactly the same mantra that Brian Finster works under, right? He's just a senior engineer who understands the business very well. He knows what practices work because he tried them. He tried the bad ones, he tried the good ones, then he iterated on that. Then when he joins the team, he says, oh, this is not up to standard. Like, we need to improve this so we can move faster. Right? If the business gets used, comfortable with the team being slow, and they start to self-censor how courageous their experiments are, that's a problem to be fixed. You shouldn't get comfortable being a slow team. And that's what feature branches and Git flow and, a senior engineer being tempted to gatekeep with like huge pull request procedures on junior developers and maybe mentored through code reviews. That's the thing. You're infantilizing your junior engineers. They can never outgrow that ceiling. That's the thing to be avoided.
And what I want to add is, I had this discussion today in a session, actually. First of all, okay, this gatekeeping is very important to break first. So this is about the cultural thing, the mindset thing. But so you always have this gap between the seniority and the juniority, let's say, in your teams. And the juniors often have the problem that they try to keep up with the seniors. But we have the intermediate level. And it is very important when you want to have something which is architectured right for the future, you need to find an average, and the average must fit the quality you want to achieve. So don't over-engineer and don't under-engineer. Find the requirements, the quality, and this is something the juniors then shall reach. It is about defining exactly what's the expectation. So about code quality, about architecture, all the things. Write it down, work it out, iterate on it over time, but don't say, the best in the team is the bar. Just do it like he says it's good. So don't do that, because this will lead to several other problems. So you need to define what you want to have as an architect or CTO or engineering manager. Yeah,
it's a great point. It's especially a very devious trap for first-time tech leads who have grown out of a senior engineering role, they will set their own standard as the standard. Let's say they're the most competent person on the team. It should not be, your standards should cater for optimal growth within the team. It shouldn't punish them for being lesser in knowledge or lesser in ability, right? So if you have this level in a senior and boom, 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 these are your juniors, the standards needs to be maybe just a little bit above their level or at their level. And then once everybody shows consistency, it's about consistency. Once you know that if I plan something and they deliver before the deadline, then you can talk about increasing the standards. But if you're going at such a high standard from the get-go that they don't have a role model to copy from, there's no other senior in the room, and they by themselves cannot reach that standard because they simply lack the experience, they won't get it. They will not get the experience, because an environment that just tells them you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, will just infantilize them, and they will want to leave such an environment. It creates an environment where lack of knowledge is punished, and it will undermine psychological safety. And an environment that lacks psychological safety creates the illusion that everything's okay. So not only will it perform badly, but it will perform badly and look good on the metrics. That's the worst thing you can do with an engineering team, especially a fresh one that works on a greenfield project. So be very, very careful about this. And the bonus point here, question your metrics. Ask your developers, talk to them, and trust their gut feeling about how well things are going more than the metrics, especially individual metrics. You want to measure the success of the team, not the individuals that make up the team, right? So a team of 3 has 4 entities, well, 5 entities. Member A, member B, member C, the leader, and the team. You want to be measuring the team and the leader. The individuals are not so much important because by osmosis, whoever you then put into such a process will adopt the average of the team. But individual measurements will always be gamed, and it'll just lead you down a rabbit hole, and you'll try to optimize and measure everything for nonsense, and the engineers will just feel like shit. Right? So you just want to avoid doing the typical sort of first-time engineering manager mistakes. Just talk to them.
Good. So we have one question.
Daniel has a hard cutoff. And we have, hang on, let me drop that real quick. So Tanner, is there anything else you wanted to ask, mention?
No, I think that was it. Awesome session.
Good luck.
Good luck. Thank you for joining.
You guys keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, Tanner.
10 more minutes.
Yeah. Daniel, how are you on time? We good?
Yeah, 10 minutes left. Yeah, let's roll it. Perfect.
All right, let's go.
The question?
It was this one? Boom.
This one, yeah. So
Yeah.
double click from 2 mouses.
What tools? Any tools? Do we need tools? Or what do you recommend?
Is the tools
That's
the right question, right?
That's a good question. That's the first sentence of the Agile Manifesto, right? Individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
Yeah.
And I mean, you don't need specific tools. You need the specific practices, what you have in action programming. We already discussed, the pair programming, more programming, TDD, small releases, collective ownership of the code, etc. And you need to try to follow these and apply this. So, of course, tools can help in some sense, but I cannot recall any good tool, which is wow.
Code with me. I can recall. Code with me.
Code with me. Okay. I never use that.
If you're in the IntelliJ ecosystem, Code with me allows, it's like an interactive Zoom session, but everybody can type in your IDE and use the shortcuts of your IDE because everybody's on IntelliJ, and they can use their terminal, so they can run your tests on your machine.
Yeah,
and they can see your linter and syntax highlight and everything else happening live on their screen. So it's not screen sharing. They see your editor in their editor.
Yeah, it's like a live sharing Visual Studio Code. I think it's very similar.
It's more like you having the same Google Drive document open as somebody else, but it's not screen sharing.
Yeah, like live share. I know that.
Because the typing is very low latency. So all of the sort of pair programming screen sharing tools that have like a text input, they have extremely high delay on typing. and they make it really difficult to type.
Okay.
Type something, hit dot, and then wait for the context pop-up to show up. I mean, there's nothing more demotivating than just having the driver sort of be lagged.
Cool.
So Code with Me is a good tool if you're in the IntelliJ ecosystem. What else? 𝗂𝗱𝗶𝗲. If you need to draw interactively with somebody live, or Miro, but Miro has that annoying licensing thing.
Draw.io. That's also
Draw.io. Yeah, it's not interactive. You can't share a session with somebody, and you can't record. So 𝗂𝗱𝗶𝗲 for me is the best, and I think Draw.io now has a VS Code plugin. So if you're in VS Code and you're using the collaboration plugin where you can remote pair with somebody, you can both install the plugin for having Draw.io on a Draw.io document that's in Git in your project. You can both open it together and draw together, or at least you can commit together. So that's one of those things. Anything else? Tools for extreme programming. I would definitely. I would say what tools not to use. So don't use tools like Jira or a nonsense Kanban board to replace human interaction. I'm not saying don't use the tools. The tools are okay. A company needs documentation, especially a large one, but don't use them to have conversations.
Yes.
Only use them to document decisions. So use them as architecture decision records.
The board should follow your communication as a team.
Exactly. And what I hate the most is when people say, oh, I can't work on this. I need to create a ticket. Jira is a lagging tool, not a leading one. You should you should have a discussion with your team, start working on a task, and then at the end of the day, create a ticket for what you finished. That's how you should be using Jira. If you're using Jira, because then that ticket will be done and there will be documentation for the decisions that have gone in. Most importantly, you will mention, we planned to do this and this and this and this, and then we saw that when we encountered problem X, that we only had time to finish this. You can follow the next ticket in this one, in this epic. That's the most useful thing you can do, because you're documenting how the day went, and then somebody can follow that. There's nothing worse than creating a plan of the future in Jira, and then the plan desyncs with what the developers are doing, and then there's an engineering
from
manager
day two.
From day two, now everybody's sort of trying to, okay, now the plan says we should be done in 2 days, but that was an estimate, so I think we're off by like 10%. But now I want you to estimate our progress on that estimate. So please estimate the percentage of how much of that percentage is done. And that's just backlog-driven development, and that's silly. Stories, tickets are an extreme programming concept, and what they do, they are records of decisions that are an output, an outcome of conversations between people, between customers, between engineers, right? So they're not a planning session. They are documenting conversations and decisions made in those conversations, right? So when you say, we have decided to split this feature apart so that we can deploy A today and B tomorrow, that's what should go into the story. Not the as a underscore, I want to underscore so that underscore. This sort of typical agile Scrum ticket template format that nobody really understands, and then just creates stupid master tickets, and then people just work in subtasks.
I have one more tool, maybe just quickly I can mention, which I can recommend. It's related to TDD. So if you practice TDD, you should find a continuous test runner. And what it does, it runs all your tests always after each keystroke. So for example, ncrunch,
vtest.
Exactly. These and what happens every keystroke, all your tests are executed. You never
PyCrunch.
Exactly. You never manually execute them. This saves a lot of time. It gives you feedback right away when you break your software.
And a good refactoring tool. So if you're on the .NET ecosystem, ReSharper, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you're in the IntelliJ ecosystem, I mean, ReSharper is an IntelliJ plugin to basically make VS Code become IntelliJ.
Yes, exactly.
But definitely a good refactoring tool. You want to be able to, and I can recommend Key Promoter X. I recommended it last week as well. Your IDE has hotkeys. key promoter X tells you, hey dummy, the thing you just clicked your mouse with has a hotkey. Here's a hotkey. You missed it.
I haven't installed it yet. I need to still do that.
It's a great tool because you should ideally know. Okay, move is F6, rename is Shift F6, extract methods is Shift Option M. Right, so you should just be able to be on a pair programming session and just say boom, 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 refactor, move out, and refactoring should take you minutes, not hours.
Good. We have really no time anymore regarding Daniel. So I would like to wrap up now the show. So Daniel, how can people reach you actually to find more about you, your work, what you're going to do, your content? How do you want to be found?
First of all, absolutely on LinkedIn, I'm available. I'm posting content daily about extreme programming and TDD, so check me out. That's one thing, and I also have a newsletter, more than 10,000 subscribers, and over there I post whenever I have time, and over there are a lot of great posts from the past, so about extreme programming and about the things we talk specifically. So check it out, and if you have any question, drop me a DM on LinkedIn. So that's the great place you can find me.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you too.
Thanks. Sabrina says thanks as well. So I hope this won't be the last time we have you on the show in this year. So maybe we can go for a second run.
Absolutely.
It was a great one, a very good chemistry. So I think people liked it. I just saw the numbers so far, and I was constantly doing comments. So that was the first time I was really bothered with comments. So that was great. So do that again, please, audience. That was great. So thank you very much.
I have to highlight, Adrian had a slight headache going into the show. So thank you so much for being so diligent with the backstage work and the comments and the technicalities. And Adrian's doing all of the clips, all of the little snippets, all of the little GIFs and the little clips that are going on to LinkedIn and his blog and into these intro streams. So thank you so much really appreciate all the work that you're putting into this.
Yes, and we will have a lot of clips around next week, Monday, starting from that show. So every interesting parts will be displayed in clips. We will send it to Daniel, then you can post them. Maybe we post some, and we will have it as a good recap with captions on the blog, so you can basically review it on yourself when you have time to, or have you missed something or something like that. So stay tuned for that. And yes, so yeah, it was a great show, and thank you everyone for participating. Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It was great fun.
Until next time, to our live audience, we now have a Circle SO community where you can sort of stamp yourself as a regular. And hoping to announcements go there now, hoping to have any kind of post-stream or in-between stream discussions with you offline. So now we finally have a little place that we can call home. Thank you so much to all of our regulars that I didn't catch up on in live comments. Jose, Ivan, I saw Angel, I saw Grant.
There were some comments not shown in our stream and software. Sorry for that. Several people. We tried to improve that, but this is a technical problem.
It's a technical issue with LinkedIn. We can't go over it. If you want guaranteed comments now, Twitch, YouTube, or the Circle SO community, we will definitely keep an eye on it, and we'll definitely address each and every one of them.
Exactly. After we were leaving now, we will have some clips from the past sessions. I will just leave them running as long as we're uploading our stuff. So just take a look, and yeah. See you next time, which is next Wednesday, and next Thursday, same time again, with probably another PWA Progressive Web App session where we live coding, React, next PWA, next, and creating a PWA on this day together, a little one. And
I still don't hate Tailwind, so we need to get to that.
Yeah, Tailwind will be part of that as well. And we're building basically a little mapping tool, and maybe you can click on that tool when we deploy it online and make sure that we don't.
Yes.
And then click your marker where you are and listen. Yeah. That will be great. So join us. We will announce soon, and join the community. And then you see it earlier than the others. Okay, that's okay. Then we wrap up now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. And goodbye.
Keep it up. Take care. Bye bye.
AI and the fear of AI, especially AI in relation to developers. Will AI replace developers? And we had some polls running about that, and we've talked about that several times, already created video content about that, articles even, and this is not a new topic. And I can say for me, it changed basically every week. So my perception of AI changed every week. That is so rapidly evolving. So in the beginning, I was like, oh, AI is not a topic. So everyone was, so 1 year ago, everyone was talking about it. And I say, yeah, it's just another thing. A big mistake. So actually, maybe not so much because it wasn't that interesting to that time because it was all closed and stuff like this. But as soon as it came out and I started to use ChatGPT in the beginning, not for development, but for helping me to write things, writing emails, I had a lot of chores to do. And I realized how useful this tool really is. And then some colleagues, some of my developers told me that, oh, they started to code with it. And I was a little bit like, oh, it's not a good idea. So we will probably have a problem about that. But I learned that it's not a problem. It's actually more like some sort of advantage. It was an improvement for our entire team. And I started to use it for that as well. And I wrote about this week. I think most in the audience should know about that post, I think. And it was about how ChatGPT helped me to develop a mini script application, which helps the entire team now, where I was lacking the skill set to do that by myself, and I hadn't had the time to learn it, and it actually helped. So it was specifically ChatGPT. So no one is indifferent about that, first of all. And you have those people who are afraid of what does this mean to me in the long term, but in the short term, it's about, I don't know if I want to use that. There are so many thoughts about that, and not all of them are, oh, it's actually a great tool. And I think the session today shall shed some light on the idea, what is actually AI for us developers? So first of all, I think we can all say already that it's probably not a threat for us as long as we are, let's say, interested in giving it a chance. The details about...
So Bogdan was saying, I like to separate deploy and releases processes. Deploy should be, deploy should be automated. Okay. So machine is responsible for this. The only step when engineering is involved is to press the button deploy. Business decide what and when functionality should be released. What is your point of view on this?
Yeah, that is exactly also what I see, that many teams or many companies do not differentiate with that. I deploy, it's going live, it affects customers, and that could be an issue. But when we introduce feature toggles, for example, like Wodan also points at, we can deploy a lot of things without even putting them live. And we can even put them live only for a small group of users, or we can put them live only for one tenant in a multi-tenant environment. And by this, we can control who gets it first. And we might be able to even test it in production. And then we know it works in production because we can have a test tenant, for example, where we activate a feature and we can run automated tests there. And we know that it also works in the production infrastructure, not just on some staging system with smaller data, less traffic, and all these things. So this is very helpful. And then also that provides the capability to the business to activate features for everybody once they are ready. And we can also quickly deactivate them if there is an incident. Because when in deployment, like when the release goes wrong and we see, okay, there is an incident, then what are we doing? We can fix forward if we have a fast pipeline, but even easier, we can just deactivate that one feature in most cases. And then within seconds, we are back at the green state and everything runs fine for everybody.
There's two kinds of one thing. Number one, there's the engineering feedback, right? Okay. I'm going to deliver this change today to find out if it breaks it. And then there's the business feedback. I'm going to deliver the smallest slice of this next feature to find out if it's valuable and deliver that and get feedback. But
figure out if it's safe to merge and whether it's safe to continue with these requirements.
Yeah. Just because it passes all the tests doesn't mean that it doesn't break something in production once it finally gets to a production environment. I try to have a high level of confidence, but we're never 100% sure.
Yeah.
And so we want to get feedback as rapidly as possible in the engineering thing. People tell me there's no value in delivering anything until it's feature complete. No. I know it's stable. I want to make sure we're on the right track. I don't want to invest too much money in this idea. I don't want to assume my idea is correct. I want to assume my idea is incorrect. It's a scientific experiment. I'm trying to invalidate the hypothesis. And we should be ecstatic when it's successful and just accept when it's not. And then how do we change course to make it, to chase the value instead of just assuming value?
I would like to add something to the term of confidence. I think confidence doesn't mean that you are 100%, as you said, 100% safe to deploy. It's about to be confident that you can handle a situation even if something happened, but you expect feedback. So what you definitely get is feedback. And if the feedback is a negative, you can react quickly on that. So this is confidence. It's not about, oh, I'm 100% sure that nothing will happen. I think this is a big misconception.
No, I agree. And people focus on the wrong thing. I want to make sure that everything is perfect before we deliver. That's the wrong thing.
What is actually well-being then for software professionals? So why are we going to talk about that? Richard, can you take the word and talk a little bit about your experience and why this is a big topic we should all take care of?
Yeah, so I think interestingly for me, I've always been physically active. So well-being used to mean to me just physical health, right? And so I've always thought, yeah, I've got that down. I've always gone to the gym. I've played football. I've played squash. I've done running. So that's always been something that's there. And actually, only later in my career did I realize how much that was helping me along the way. But I wasn't doing it deliberately. I wasn't doing it for that purpose. And I hadn't connected the dots. Reflecting more on my career and some of my challenges and trying to piece it all together, and thinking a bit more about the mindset, about mental health and all of that kind of stuff, I realized well-being is much broader than just your physical health. And I think one of the biggest and most interesting things about well-being is that it's very individualistic. And so that is, it's good and it's bad in a sense, because the fact that it's so individualistic means that we can't just put a single label on it. So we can't say to everyone, this is well-being and you've got it or you don't. And so for some people that's hard and it's complicated. On the flip side, it's actually really good for us because well-being means different things to different people, and we decide what being means to us. And that's super important, and it touches, it's very closely linked to a big part of what we're talking about here, which is responsibility. And almost the first part of our responsibility is to define and to recognize what being means to us. And so just broad stroke, that's your physical health, your mental health, feeling safe in the environment that you find yourself in, and feeling safe, being social with people as well. And yeah, that's a broad thing, and those different things mean different things to different people, and it's finding your mix of those and then branching out to the things that contribute positively to them, which can also be completely different for different people. So suddenly everything's thrown legs, and it's huge.
Since you don't leave, I just want to ask you the question. Do you like those clips in the end? So the numbers are not dropping, and I'm waiting for the numbers to drop so that I actually can go offline as well. And I see that Dennis is just in backstage again as well. I'll put him online. Here it is.
We're not going live again.
We are still live. So I was running the clips, and I saw that there was interest regarding those clips. So maybe I need to create bigger outros where we can just leave it on, because this is actually quite good to get an overview of what we had already and what you might expect when you join our community or read the blogs. So let us know if you like those clips. And you said you're careful, you're on stage. I'm pretty aware of that. So I would say goodbye then. So goodbye everyone. Have a nice day. Dennis and who of both is this?
This is Gaia.
Gaia.
Luna's right here. Sort of make
Good night, Gaia. See you, everyone. See you. Bye-bye.